After failing to pass a similar bill 2 years ago, some Nebraska lawmakers are looking to pass a voter ID law in the state. The constitutional amendment would allow Nebraskans to vote on whether they'll need to show a state-issued ID in future elections. Reporter John Kipper explains supporters say it's a common-sense step in making elections more secure, but those against it say it could disenfranchise voters.
Jenny, in 18 states across the country, you cannot vote unless you have a photo ID. Over a dozen others, including Iowa, requires voters to verify their identity in other ways. But here in Nebraska, you simply say your name and address, and you can vote. This bill could change that. Bob Evnen made voter ID a core part of his 2018 campaign before he was elected Secretary of State. Now he's backing a legislative bill that would let voters decide if they want to require a photo ID before they vote.
It's overwhelmingly supported by Nebraskans. It's just common sense.
Evans says that's one major step the state can take in order to secure our elections.
We need to do this now before we have a problem.
But those against it say there's no problem at all.
We don't typically work on trying to get ahead of problems that don't exist. We work on trying to solve the problems that are ahead of us in the state of Nebraska and the Nebraska legislature.
If the legislature approves the constitutional amendment from Senator Angela Groen, voters would first have to pass it into law. If they did that, it would be on the legislature next year to put rules in place.
You shouldn't be putting restrictions on constitutional rights unless there's an actual problem, and there has been no cases whatsoever of voter impersonation fraud in the state of Nebraska, which is exactly the only thing that voter ID protects against.
Senator Groen says multiple states have had elections decided by a handful of votes, and Nebraska needs to make sure they get theirs right.
One is too many, and so we need to have systems in place to ensure that that doesn't happen. And I believe that we can do that without disenfranchising a single voter.
Evidence says just 2% of adults in Nebraska don't have an ID. Evidence would want to get them one if it does pass.
Go take a look at that population that does not currently possess a state-issued ID and find out why not.
Now, Senator Vargas says that if the state does have money to pay for IDs, he'd rather use that money to allow Nebraskans to register to vote more easily. Reporting in the studio, John Kipper, 3 News Now.